Our version of Dunaway is standing by, ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President. The World Wide Web is a large place. Find all your favorite people and content in the same spot. NextRoundLive.com is full of wonderful tidbits about the show you know and love. Find our gear, listen to your favorite personalities, follow our socials, and enjoy your trip to NextRoundLive.com.
Hang out with the Next Round on the go. Whether you're driving to work, running errands, sitting on the beach, or you just need a break from the real world, we can keep you company. Check out the Next Round, Mystery Fifth Hour, and our other shows on your favorite podcast app. We'll meet you there.
Ryan Brown here for the Next Round. Join me and CBS sports analyst Brandon Marcello for the Middle Eight each Monday at 8 a.m. as we look back at the weekend of college football from the SEC to the top 25 of the college football playoff. It's the Middle Eight presented by MyBookie.ag, code Next Round.
Start your day online with our website, nextroundlive.com, for the latest videos, podcasts, and college football stories. It's also a great way to stream the show or shop in the Next Round store. Stay connected by visiting nextroundlive.com.
All right, welcome in another week of the Middle Eight. He is CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. Brandon Marcello, I'm Ryan Brown. The show presented by MyBookie.ag. Code Next Round to double that deposit. Initially there, they double your initial deposit with code Next Round at MyBookie.ag. Good morning, Brandon. What is happening, my man?
Good morning, man. I'm supercharged after a cross-country trip to Oregon.
Yeah, I saw you up there. Boy, I mean, when we looked back in the preseason at this weekend of college football, and a lot of people circled, maybe the Red River game is big, Ohio State, Oregon. I don't know that we could have ever dreamt that we could have the Saturday that we had. That is as good a college football Saturday as you could imagine. Close games in every single window.
Yeah, every single window, and it seemed like every hour we're having to turn the channel to a different type of finish. And just tremendous also like rallies by a lot of teams to force one overtime or a drive deciding game late. And not just the nationally ranked games, but some other games off the beaten path, so to speak. It was the most entertaining Saturday of football that I can remember probably in the least like 3-4 years.
So let's start with the game you attended. You were in Eugene for the Big Ten matchup. And big top 25 matchup and college football playoff matchup, whatever you want to put on it, that's what was on this game. Ohio State at Oregon, and boy, did this game absolutely deliver. 32-31 Oregon win. First of all, let's just talk about the environment. I mean, I know that stadium gets a lot of love for being a difficult place to play. You've been to, I don't know if I would say many games. I don't know how many you've been to. What was the environment like?
It's one of the loudest atmospheres I've been a part of in college football. And that's saying something considering there's only 61,000 fans in that stadium that they can fill it with. But there's just something about the geography that stadium's in, and then also just the setup with it. It was a stellar atmosphere, the best atmosphere I've been in so far this season. And it definitely affected Ohio State in that game on several plays, but just a tremendous atmosphere. Game day all week there, I was told, was just absolutely fantastic. I went to a Starbucks Friday afternoon after I landed, and I saw Ty Burrell of Modern Family having coffee outside, and he started getting hounded by fans, and it was quite the scene there over the weekend.
So Dylan Gabriel, when he's not throwing interceptions in the red zone, is one heck of a quarterback. And he cut that out in this game. It had become a problem for him. Key interceptions, key turnovers. But not Saturday. 23 of 34, 341, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. And he lost Trayshawn Holden in that bonehead play Holden made, which he has since apologized for. I mean, they were getting a little skinny at receiver in that game.
Oh, not just skinny, like almost
depleted.
Non-existent skin and bones.
Yeah.
Going into that game, their 4th and 5th best receivers were injured and out, so they had to bring a player in who had 40 career snaps.
Wow.
And he ended up catching a big pass later in the game in the second half, though he nearly fumbled it out of bounds. But A stellar job by Dillon Gabriel. I actually just filed a story on him about how he's been in college football forever, 6 years, and he's put up great numbers. He's like in the top 3 all time in a lot of numbers right now. But there's always been the criticism about just making mistakes in crucial moments, especially in the red zone, as you mentioned. And that's not just something this year. That's been throughout his career that he's made some big mistakes. And he's been so close to a championship. I mean, last year at Oklahoma, they beat Texas in the regular season and then, of course, lose the Big 12 to Texas later on in the year as Texas made their great run. At UCF as a freshman, I mean, things were sky high for Dillon Gabriel as a freshman. He comes in, replaces their starter 2 weeks into the season, leads them to the American Conference championship contention, but falls 1 win short of winning it and getting to the championship game. And then ever since then, it's just been he's been trying to claw his way back through injuries and then just poor performances. And now he's got Oregon off to a 6-0 start with their biggest regular season win in history. And they've done it not in spite of him, but because of him. If there was any other quarterback out there for them potentially, they probably lose that game. But he made some tremendous decisions throwing the ball. I'm not sure. There's not many quarterbacks in college football right now that throw a more beautiful, high-arcing, deep throw than him. I mean, there were several in that game. And we could talk much more about this, but how about Oregon's game plan of we're not going to shy away from Denzel Burke, their best cornerback. We're going to attack him. They went after him 3 times in the first half. He was beaten badly each time, including for 2 deep throws. 2 touchdowns he gave up there in the first half, Denzel Burke. They went right after him. And again, on Dillon Gabriel's decision-making in this game, none better than there early in the fourth quarter when he faked out everybody in the stadium, including Ohio State's tremendous defensive end on that fake handoff. And he runs around, slips around the right side untouched for a 27-yard touchdown run. Tremendous performance by Gabriel. But overall, that Oregon team, not maybe as talented as Ohio State, but better coached, better prepared, and they came up bigger in the big moments.
Will Howard, his numbers were fantastic, and he played a good game. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that will only remember not having much game awareness at the end there, running the ball. Just running the ball. B, running the ball too far and not getting down in time. I mean, just not a whole lot of game awareness at the end. But aside from that, 28-35, 326 and 2 touchdowns, it's hard to complain aside from that one mistake at the end.
Yeah, and I will say this. I think that the big decision by the Ohio State coaches to almost kind of abandon the run game in the second half in some big moments, it was their undoing. There were 2 long drives in that game by Ohio State that was done so because they were mixing the pass with the run, obviously, but because they were getting things rolling through the run game. They had a really good matchup advantage on the left side of their offensive line that they didn't take advantage of nearly enough. Credit Oregon for slowing Ohio State's run offense a little bit and getting Ohio State away from that. But I think they only ran the ball 12 times in the second half after doing so, I think 21 times in the first half. Ohio State, I think, would have won this game if they just ran the ball 5 more times in that second half. They got away from it a little bit too much, I thought. They could throw the ball, but I think Will Howard started getting flustered there. And the reason why he took off on that final play is because he had one defender flash across his face real quick, and he took off running thinking, okay, I can get a first down here, get us in field goal range, and we can get nope, ran out of time. It's incredible. I've been to 2 straight games with field stormings.
Yeah.
And 2 straight games where the quarterback ran the ball and time expired.
I was just about to ask that. The game awareness at the end for quarterbacks in your games is not great.
That, and also I think a lot of it has to be said about, yes, Will Howard has experience previously at Kansas State, but he hadn't really been on the road in a big game in a long time.
Right.
And the same with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. The game awareness on the road was not very good for these young quarterbacks. And once again, the reason why Oregon won is because they had a veteran quarterback that, yes, was often criticized for making mistakes earlier this season, but when the moments matter, he doesn't get flustered like these other guys, and that's why Oregon won.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you mentioned about the run game, because this is what fans do, and there's a lot of times that it's justified. When you see Travion Henderson's averaging 8.7 yards per carry and he's only got 10 carries, you're like, what is going on here?
I agree. He was their workhorse in that first half. He was tremendous. He was better than Judkins. They got away from him. They should have utilized him more in the run game. I don't know why they abandoned it. I don't know if Oregon was doing something. They just couldn't quite feel like they could do anything against it. And you look at Oregon only allowed them a rush for less than 2 yards per carry in that second half. But that was, yes, Oregon's defense, but also they were running it only when it was predictable, Ohio State. They weren't mixing it in as much as they were in the first half when they were so much better on the ground.
So did that do enough to get Oregon to number 1 and Brandon's power rankings? We'll find out just a little bit later on. He does that each week for CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. He unveils his top 12 with us. We'll see if that gets Oregon to number 1. It didn't in the Associated Press coaches poll. Texas stayed there. More on Texas and Oklahoma in a moment. We'll get to Penn State and USC playing a classic in overtime. But first, I want to remind you about MyBookie.ag. Code next round. When you sign on at MyBookie.ag, you make your initial deposit. They double that deposit. That's the bonus when you use code next round. Monday Night Football tonight. You can play that right there at MyBookie.ag if you want to sit around and watch a little bit of Jets and Bills. The first Jets game post Robert Saleh firing. They are a 1-point home underdog as the division rival Bills come to town. You can play that game right there at MyBookie.ag. Code next round. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag. Code next round. When you look at James Franklin's history, he's really good against teams that aren't ranked. He's pretty good in road games. Actually, he's got a really good road game record. Those things combined at the Coliseum, but it was anything but easy for them, having to go to overtime to beat USC.
What a stellar comeback by them. Yeah. Let's give them some props, Penn State, the way they fought back in that game after being down a couple of touchdowns early. I thought that thing was teetering on maybe being a blowout, and us just going, well, this is definitely not the year Franklin's going to break through the ceiling, and what's going to happen there. But Tyler Warren, everybody's saying it, everybody knows it. Just a game for the ages for him at tight end. Tying the FBS record with 17 receptions. He also threw the ball. He also ran the ball. Had a trick play where he started off snapping the ball at center, and it ended with him catching the ball for a touchdown. Never see that. You never see that. Have we seen that?
I don't know. I do not remember that one, no.
A tremendous comeback. And again, why is Penn State able to come back in a game like that? Why is Penn State looking so good right now and different than they were in previous years? It's because of offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki, who was at Kansas and sparked them with his creative play designs and his play calls. And you see what's happening with Kansas right now this year. With the veteran quarterback back and healthy, Jalen Daniels, they're struggling still, and yet Penn State's reinvigorated. That offense has got going. Drew Aller, not his best game, obviously, throwing a few picks there, but they overcame it, and they leaned on Tyler Warren to get it done, and some very great play calls by Andy. Impressive victory by Penn State, and definitely a Big Ten contender, and now in my eyes, a national title contender.
Yeah, you mentioned Aller, 3 interceptions, but aside, and you cannot flush those. I completely understand, especially playing a road conference game. But aside from that 30 of 43, 2 touchdowns, 391 yards, I mean, I will give him credit for the interceptions not putting him in a shell. He was still making plays for his team at the end of the game.
Absolutely. And I think that's the confidence he has after a couple of years now as the starter finally, and then also just Andy Kotelnicki putting him in great positions to deliver down in crunch time. And again, for USC, you wonder, are we just seeing the same old from Lincoln Riley's teams where they just kind of wear down defensively and they start giving things up late in games? I'd have to go back and look, Brownie. You might know this, but like his record against FBS opponents in like the last 10 games is dreadful. It's turning sour there at USC, and it sucks because, man, they started the year so strong. That win against LSU and the way the defense was performing, I think all of us were sitting here going, wow, maybe they finally got things figured out. But again, it's almost like the past is creeping back into the present and defining the future once again for Lincoln Riley, and that is his offense tends to get things done, especially early, but that defense just kind of lets them down, and then the offense gets stagnant.
He was 1-5 to finish the season against Power 5 teams last year, conference teams. He beat LSU, and he's only got the Wisconsin win and the LSU win. So, I mean, he's only won 3, if I do the quick math here, I think 3 of the last 10 against Power 5. 3-7 against Power 5 over his last 10. They're 3-3 now. They've got imminently losable games remaining on this schedule. It feels a little bit like a 6-6, 7-5 team here at USC.
It does. It really does. And I when I hear that, I go back to a conversation I had with Lincoln back in July. He told me that, listen, nationally, I don't think a lot of people realize this is a rebuilding year for us. And that even made me go kind of like, what? What are you talking about? You guys just redefined your strength program with a lot of guys you had coming back along the defensive line. You lost weight. You gotten bigger in some spots. Yes, you're replacing Caleb Williams at quarterback, but Miller Moss is pretty good, and we know his track record with quarterbacks. But, maybe he was right from that standpoint. But I did not expect it to turn out like this. I did not expect this team to look a little bit worse as the season went on. I thought they'd be a team that would get better week to week, and that's not happening.
3-8 in his last 11. Let me quickly clean that up there. Yeah, 3-8 in his last 11, and that. He could talk about rebuilding. I just don't know how patient fans are for that message. He's in year 3, and I get it that you've lost, Caleb Williams, who's playing now well for the Bears. But man, rebuilding doesn't always look like 6-6 and 7-5 at a place like USC. But
yeah, and he gets helped by nothing. He's not in trouble.
No,
this year it's his first year in the Big Ten, so you got that. Also, I also think that we haven't talked enough about how their recruiting was struggling a little bit because the NIL program there wasn't quite up to snuff. That's gotten better this past spring, going into now. And so, we'll see here the next couple of years. But I think that he inherited a situation there that wasn't exactly as elite as maybe a lot of us were led to believe. And I think they're finally getting all that on track behind the scenes. And maybe some of that's actually proving itself out this season, that things weren't necessarily as good as he inherited at that time as maybe we thought.
It is the middle 8, most important part of many games, the middle 8, the last 4 minutes the first half, first 4 minutes the second half. Certainly true in a lot of games this week. We do this every single Monday at 8 a.m. Central with Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports. It's presented by MyBookie.ag, code next round to double your initial deposit. They double that, free money for you right away at MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag, code next round. Also, Roback has great gear, the great golf gear, the great pullovers, the great quarter zips and hoodies. They've got pants now. Roback.com to shop there. Code TNR20 saves you 20% off your first order. Code TNR20. They got team-specific gear as well. Go shop for your team gear, your hoodies, great gifts for gift-giving season coming up at Roback.com. Code TNR20. There were many that wanted to paint Ohio State, Oregon like this game that could shake up the playoffs. Truthfully, they're probably going to meet again. Penn State has a lot to say about that. The true game that had playoff implications Saturday was Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Ole Miss at LSU, Brandon. It felt like the loser of this game is really behind the 8 ball, and that is now the Ole Miss Rebels.
This year is supposed to be different, right?
It was.
Nope.
A lot of the same.
I'm very disappointed in Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss this season. Very disappointed. That offense just doesn't travel. It didn't travel last year. There were like nearly a 20-point difference in scoring last year in home games to road games for Ole Miss, and it's proving itself out once again this year. Undisciplined team. They had 12 penalties for more than 100 yards at LSU. And then you got your quarterback, Jackson Dart, just sitting there after the game going, I don't know how we lost this game. And I think a lot of Ole Miss fans are sitting there saying the same thing. Like, how the hell are we losing these games? We're the better team. They're the better overall team compared to LSU. They should not have lost that game. LSU did not lead that game until the final touchdown in overtime. Just bad mistakes all around, undisciplined football, and that offense just isn't traveling right now. I picked Ole Miss in this game because I thought their defensive front was elite and was going to get things done. But if you allow Garrett Nussmeier to convert 2 4th downs or whatever on a drive, that you're just going to lose a football game. I mean, that they lost it at that point. And I mean, they're not quote unquote out of the playoff race now, but they have to win out. In my opinion, I don't see a 3-loss Ole Miss team getting in there at this point, unless crazier things happen and they get to the SEC championship game with 2 losses and end up losing a tight one to say like Texas or something like that. That's number 1 in the country. But Brownie, we talk about most disappointing teams in the country at this point. Ole Miss might actually be my one because I legitimately expected so much more from them. I thought that they were a legitimate top 4, top 5 team going into this season that was going to get rolling and get that confidence going. But the exact opposites happened to them this season.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about this team being 7-0 at this point.
The schedule was easy, so to speak. And now they still got Georgia, got to come to Oxford, obviously. Right. And the first half of the schedule, like I said, I thought this was a team that would get rolling because of the schedule, the way it was set up, and they did not take advantage of it. And I just don't see how they get rolling after the way they performed the first half of the season now with a much more difficult back half.
Yeah, they've got a road trip to Arkansas. You've seen that place and that team at home. That is far from a given that you win there. They've got a road trip to Florida, who, say what you want about the Gators, they are playing improved football right now. We'll get to them in a moment in their game against Tennessee. And they've still got that game against Georgia. They've got a game against Oklahoma, whose offense is just dreadful right now. But, I mean, there are losable games left on this schedule. It is a very, very difficult climb for Ole Miss right now.
Yeah. God, if they were to lose to Oklahoma, I think that would be the ultimate stinker for them. Who knows right now with Ole Miss. And you mentioned Florida. And we'll talk about them later, but I am so impressed by how they've responded with all this talk around them. They're playing their asses off, and they have been the last 3 weeks. But Ole Miss doing the exact opposite. It's just it's like watching a 7-on-7 team out there just thinking, we'll just go out there and throw the ball up and we're going to win. That's not how it works in college football.
We mentioned, you mentioned it when you were talking about USC, as they started the season beating LSU, and we all thought, okay, this is USC showing up for the college football playoff discussion. And since that game, it feels like those teams have, ships passed in the night. LSU has continued to incrementally get better. USC has continued to fall off. Garrett Nussmeier wasn't perfect, but those last 2 passes he threw to Kyron Lacey, the 4th and 23 touchdown pass to force overtime, and then the first play in their overtime possession, a 25-yard dart to Kyron Lacey. Those are 2 spectacular throws.
Yeah, and he's still a great quarterback. We all know that. And he's the reason why they are who they are right now. It's not necessarily because of the running game. And, he's a guy that if he gets hot at the right moment here, he could make LSU potentially a team that somehow sneaks into the SEC championship game because of the schedule and the way it sets up for them. Look out for LSU. Huge game, in my opinion, at Arkansas this week.
Yeah, what do you feel? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I told you last week that actually defensively for Arkansas matches up much better than Tennessee did for them because of what they've got defensively and what they like to do defensively. But having said that, let's see what Garrett Nussmeier can do on the road. I think on the road, he's better equipped than a Nico Iamaleava. And so that will be quite a test. But I think that game could be very, very close. That's a coin flip game, in my opinion, this week.
Yeah, at mybookie.ag, LSU is a 3-point road favorite. I would imagine some of that is factoring in the Taylon Green injury. Do you have any update on that? What is the prospect for him playing in this game?
Great question. I have not checked in on it, but my understanding, even right after that game, I talked to him after the game. He was hobbled a little bit, but he was walking. That I was told that night that they thought it was a hyperextended knee, which could keep him out for a couple of weeks potentially. But we'll see. I know they had a bye week, so he was able to stay off of it. My expectation at this point, just based off hearing that on that game night, is that they'll find a way to get him healthy and play in that game. and they'll need to be able to beat LSU because their backup, not a great passer, and I don't know if you can put him in a situation where he's got to carry the team the entire night. He did a great job on that final drive, but he only had to throw one pass against Tennessee. So they need Taylor Green out there.
Yeah,
but I bet he plays.
That is a night game in Fayetteville, a re-energized fan base. It feels like that fan base has kind of gotten re-energized after that Tennessee win and got behind Sam Pittman again, and that's going to be a difficult environment for LSU to handle.
Very difficult. We talked about this, like Greg McElroy, former Alabama players have said that that's the toughest road environment they've played in, which is crazy to think. But, I'm an Arkansas guy. I live here. I've been to games there. And when the fan base is charged up and they've got nearly 80,000 in those stands, a lot like Autzen Stadium in Oregon, just the way it's kind of placed kind of on the hillside there and everything, it gets very loud there. And, I tell you, there's something about that hall call that, again, I think subconsciously, it just sounds so strange. I think it just messes with people. It really does.
Your problem with LSU is just this remaining schedule is very, very difficult for them. We mentioned the road trip to Arkansas. That's followed by a road trip to Texas A&M, who is playing very, very good football right now. Then you've got the annual game against Alabama. That is at least in Death Valley in Tiger Stadium.
Yes.
Here comes Florida again. I mean, Florida had the end of that schedule where they play everybody good in the SEC. Well, LSU's part of that. Oh, by the way, you've still got to go to Vanderbilt. Or, excuse me, you host Vanderbilt. But, I mean, that we've seen as far from a given. And you close the season against Oklahoma. That's why this game was so important for LSU, because you dropped the Ole Miss game with that remaining schedule. Finding your way to the end with 2 losses was going to be absolutely impossible. I think even LSU had to have it more than Ole Miss did.
Well,
I don't know. I think both of them had to have it. Yeah.
I think Ole Miss has the tougher schedule coming up because of the matchups and because they got Georgia on the schedule still. Alabama is very beatable because of their third down defense, and it's in Death Valley, as you said. I like the matchup against A&M, even though it's on the road. I like the way that matches up for LSU. And then obviously OU, they can't score against the wind right now. So I prefer LSU's schedule right now compared to, say, Ole Miss and what they have to face. This was, to me, a must-win for Ole Miss more so than LSU.
All right, we've done half an hour here, and we've still got a lot of games to get to. Tennessee survives at home against a resurgent Florida team. The Red River was a complete dud. Alabama survives at home against South Carolina. A lot of survival going on. We'll discuss that. Maybe look ahead to some big games next week as well with Georgia and Texas, and Alabama at Tennessee. Also, Brandon will unveil his top 12. It is the Middle 8. It is presented by MyBookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND when you sign on. Get that sign-on bonus. It's double your initial deposit at MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND. That's MyBookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND.
Everything Next Round is on demand now in the podcast section at nextroundlive.com.
A legendary coach once said, "It's not the will to win that matters. It is the will to prepare to win." Hi, I'm Bobby Humphrey, Vice President of Business Development for Bryant Bank, and I can tell you that our Bryant bankers have the dedication and the experience to put together a financial game plan that is right for you. At Bryant Bank, we specialize in community banking and offer personal and business loans, checking and savings account, mobile banking, and treasury management services. Stop by one of our 18 offices across the state of Alabama to find out what unbeatable service and legendary results are all about.
Hey, Lance Taylor from the Next Round to tell you about one of our favorite places for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is Hamburger Heaven since 1982. Hamburger Heaven has been serving Birmingham's best hamburgers, cheeseburgers, French fries, hand-spun milkshakes, and sandwiches made fresh to order. All of their ingredients are fresh and prepared daily. This includes their beef, always fresh, never frozen, hand-pattied each and every day. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, visit any of the 4 locations, Highway 280, Irondale, Gardendale, and Homewood.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today. Remember the name Way to Wellness if you're battling weight loss in your life. I'm Jim Dunaway from The Next Round. There was a time I was over 216 pounds until Way to Wellness helped me lose 45 pounds, and now for over 2 years, they've helped me keep that weight off. Here's their website, aplanforme.com, aplanforme.com. That's a great name for a website because there's no cookie-cutter plan. Everything is designed specifically for you. No contract, no sign-up fees, and your first consultation is free at Way to Wellness.
Happy football season. At The Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
All right, we continue on the middle eight. He is Brandon Marcello, CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. I am Ryan Brown. We appreciate you joining us every single Monday morning at 8 o'clock. I was just thinking in the break, there's not a game I had 100% thought I would talk about today. You know, as you look back on it, what turned out to be a somewhat interesting game was that Iowa State-Iowa game in week 2. Because now Iowa State has gone to West Virginia and gotten a win. 28-16, I believe was the final. I have that one in front of me. 28-16 over West Virginia. And they're undefeated. And we almost never talk about Iowa State. They pulled that Iowa game absolutely out of the fire at the end there in Iowa City. It's just one of those games you look back on and you're like, well, I didn't realize that game might have had a little more importance than I thought.
Yeah, they're 6-0 Iowa State for the first time since 1938. And again, the veteran team is winning football games in this new era with the transfer portal and everything. And, you know, they had a lot of production returning. I think they were, number 1 in the country in returning production, according to the ESPN FPI coming into this year. So, or SP Plus, I should say. And, you know, they're on a roll. Schedule's about to get a little bit tougher.
It is.
But, you know, they're winning the games the way they should. I was impressed with them winning the way they did at West Virginia, getting some turnovers and everything. They know how to win games. A lot like BYU this year, which is also tied in a 3-way tie with Iowa State atop the Big 12. They're opportunistic, right? You know, BYU is winning games by scoring points off of turnovers. Iowa State doing that as well when they need to. Impressive run by both of those Big 12 teams right now.
Yeah, you want to win a bar bet right now, go to the bar and say, give me the 3-3-0 teams in the Big 12. And it's going to be hard for people to come up with BYU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. Guns up. They are still undefeated in the Big 12, and it's shaping up. They play Iowa State in a couple of weeks, and that could be 2 undefeated teams. I don't know that we had that one on the bingo card.
No, I think a lot of people had Texas Tech as a kind of a dark horse. Their early season loss, I immediately threw them off the back burner, even in the Big 12. But they've responded nicely as well. Again, though, I just think that there's some really good coaching going on as well in the Big 12. We expected there to be a lot of back and forth in the Big 12 this year, some dramatic finishes. But Iowa State has done a pretty good job of not making things all that interesting late in games, other than, of course, their non-conference game in the rivalry game against Iowa.
All right, let's get to Tennessee and Florida. The show presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round to get that sign-on bonus. They double your initial deposit when you use code next round at MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. Code next round. Monday Night Football tonight right there as the Jets a 1-point home dog against the Bills on Monday Night Football. It went to overtime. Tennessee 23, Florida 17. To start with, I really was stunned Billy Napier didn't go for 2 at the end of regulation. And here's my thinking on that. It's number one, I don't hate the idea in any situation, right? You're on the road, you score late. Your offense obviously got some confidence. Maybe the defense is on their heels a little bit. Overtime seems to favor the home team more often than not to me. I have numbers that support that. It's a feel for me. But in that game specifically, Brandon, you're so bad in the red zone if you're Florida. They were awful in the red zone. Now you're about to play the rest of the game in the red zone if you're going to overtime. I'm sitting there thinking you're 3 yards away from the win. Do you think you're going to be 3 yards away from a win in overtime? Chances are no.
Again, a weird decision by Billy Napier on a game day, right?
Yeah.
You line up to go for 2. There's a timeout, and you decide to go ahead and kick the field goal. What the hell changed your mind? It wasn't a defensive look or anything like that. Go out there. You have more than one 2-point play in the playbook. If you are going to run a 2-point play and they call timeout and you're thinking, well, because the way their defensive line, we didn't feel good about it, then run one of your other dozen or so 2-point plays that you have. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And you're right. You're on the road. You're an underdog. You have a top 10 team on the ropes. You blew a 10-point lead. Now you have a chance to rally and win the game with a 2-point conversion instead of going to overtime where Tennessee's going to have the home crowd advantage and the momentum. Go for 2. I did not like that decision. We would not be questioning this if they just came out and kicked the field goal or the extra point anyway. But instead, you lined up for 2. Timeout, and you decide to kick the extra point. Yet another baffling, weird decision by Billy Napier that cost them the opportunity to win that football game.
On the Tennessee side, a couple of alarming things. You saw it start in Fayetteville. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Nico is regressing. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if it's just more film is out on him and defensive coordinators are figuring him out. But, boy, week by week by week, he is going backwards, and that is super alarming for Tennessee right now.
Yeah, he's thrown for under 200 yards in 5 of 7 games. And he hasn't thrown a touchdown the last 2 weeks. There are problems there. Not necessarily all with Nico. I think that the book is out on Tennessee's offense and what they run. There's been a lot of criticism, even from former players of Josh Heupel, about just what they do offensively, which is pretty much throw screen passes, then try to go deep. And the deep passes haven't necessarily been working for them, especially last week against Arkansas. And it's really made them quite one-dimensional. And they've had to lean on Dylan Sampson to run the ball. And he's done so very well, running for 100+. But that offense isn't explosive because once you try to figure out what they're doing after the first few weeks of the season, a lot of teams can adjust to that. And it's up to you as a head coach and the play caller yourself, Josh Heupel, to tweak things and make some adjustments, put your quarterback in that offense in better position. He hasn't done that these last 2 weeks. Very disappointing.
And that defense has been something they've been able to lean on. But now 2 straight weeks, a quarterback's had a really good game against them and then going out injured, and the backup has come in, and in one case led his team to victory at Arkansas, and in the other case forced overtime and a chance at victory. This is all of a sudden you see some small cracks in this Tennessee defense as well. Almost 300 pass yards by the 2 Arkansas quarterbacks and 250 almost by the 2 Florida quarterbacks. And in both cases, Tennessee couldn't close the game out effectively on defense.
Yeah, also you're asking your Tennessee defense to do everything for you at this point. They had a really good stop there near the goal line early in the game to kind of put some hesitation in Florida. Obviously, Florida was struggling in the red zone early, should have been up more than what they were. And you do wonder, like, if this offense continues to struggle even a little bit, does the Tennessee defense's back get broken at some point? Because you're asking so much of them right now. And that was not the plan or expectation going into this year.
Yeah, absolutely not. And you just wonder what that does against Alabama. So let's pair those two together with Alabama and Tennessee about to play one another. And the Crimson Tide survives another, well, shouldn't say survives another one. They didn't survive Indy. They survived Georgia. And then they survived South Carolina in a game that is baffling that it was as close as it was, that played out the way it did. Alabama made enough mistakes to talk the rest of the show about this, and South Carolina, to their credit, just kept taking advantage of mistake after mistake by Alabama.
Here's what's bothering me about Alabama. We could talk all we want until we're blue in the face about the defense, not getting off the field on third downs. But everybody on the field for Alabama is not playing harder than the opponent.
Yep.
Other than Jalen Milroe, he's playing just as hard as the opponent, if not better. Everybody else just seems to not necessarily be going through the motions, but they're struggling to match that intensity from these other teams. And that's something we are not accustomed to seeing from Alabama. Nick Saban, even against the outmatched opponents, always had his guys playing their asses off. That's not happening this year. Talk about scheme, talk about not being able to get off the field on defense on third downs, but there's some intensity missing from this team, especially defensively in these games. Everybody's coming after you, Alabama. You're the top dog in college football. Everybody wants to beat you. You've got to match their intensity week to week. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And it takes amazing coaches to get players to believe in that and to do that week to week, especially when you're as talented as you are as Alabama. But Nick Saban was able to do that. And right now, Kalen DeBoer is not getting that done in the locker room.
Yeah, he's not. And Milroe was uneven in his performance. 2 interceptions. And to discuss the 2 interceptions, the first one he threw at the end of the half, I'm not really sure what Kalen DeBoer is thinking there. He has explained his thinking. There's 11 seconds to go. He felt like they could either get a chunk play to get a long field goal or at least get in position for a Hail Mary. I mean, it is 3rd and 19. You've just made a critical error deep in your own territory. It just, watching the game felt like a good time to run it and go to the locker room. And I don't think Shane Beamer, he would have sprinted to the locker room down 14-9 the way that first half went.
Yeah. And again, I'm not so concerned about like coaching decisions and play calls by DeBoer and the staff. I'm concerned about just getting those players to play effort-wise. I had an assistant coach elsewhere in the country after the Vanderbilt game tell me that they just thought that Alabama looked lazy against Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And it was like just like someone had hit me upside the head with a frying pan. Like, I do not expect that from Alabama. And I'm like, okay, Vanderbilt's gotten their attention. Vanderbilt's gotten Alabama's attention. Just saying that's crazy.
I know it's insane.
And but this week at South Carolina, you come back home, I'm like, all right, they're going to take out their anger. They're going to get – and it didn't happen. The effort was still lacking in a lot of areas on the field. And better get that corrected because there's another loss or two potentially on this schedule.
Yeah, well, let's start there. As we pair these teams together for a reason, Alabama's about to go to Tennessee, and both these teams are limping into this game by the way they have played of late. Alabama is a slight favorite there in Knoxville at mybookie.ag right now. I don't even know what to make of this game right now because I'm not sure the mental place that either one of these teams are in, primarily offensively for Tennessee and defensively for Alabama.
Yeah, I give the edge to Alabama going into this one because of Milroe. He's going to be the best player on the field. He'll definitely be the best quarterback on the field at this point. He's a gamer. He can get it done there. Alabama's defense just got to get off the field on third downs because Tennessee, obviously, they're struggling offensively, and they're especially struggling on third downs here of late. And if you allow them to start converting or whatever, you're going to give that offense a lot of more confidence because they don't have a lot of confidence right now. If you allow them to convert some third downs like Alabama's been doing here of late, you're going to be in trouble there on the road. But I still give Alabama the edge here because Jalen Milroe is definitely one of the best players in the nation right now, and he's just not getting a lot of help from everybody else. Everybody else on that Alabama team needs to match the intensity and the effort of Jalen Milroe. If they do that, this Tide team is going to be so much better.
You're right. A remarkable statement you just made there that you're having to say those things. Let's go to the Red River game. It was the first ever SEC Red River game, and it disappointed. Normally you say it did not disappoint. No, it 100% disappointed because Oklahoma's embarrassingly bad on offense. I get it didn't work out with Jackson Arnold. Maybe you're a little young at offensive line. I don't know how a power program like Oklahoma can ever get this bad on offense.
Yeah.
There is no answer.
If I was an OU fan, I'd be missing Lincoln Riley. I know it's popular to hate on him right now, especially with going to USC and the way he left OU, obviously. But, man, I'm missing Lincoln Riley. Oklahoma has been held to 3 points in 2 of the last 3 Red River Rivalry games. In the previous 62 meetings, there were only 2 other instances. And you got to be questioning Brent Venables as a head coach now at OU. Was that the right decision? It's not going to get much better this season. What can get better offensively? I don't know what. And then you're going to have questions about who exactly is going to be your quarterback and what's your quarterback room going to look like in the offseason when the transfer portal opens up. It's bad in Norman right now. I dropped them out of my top 25 a week ago, I believe, and because they just don't look the part at all. They were lucky to beat Auburn thanks to a pick 6 on the road, and much like Tennessee in some instances, I wonder when does that defense's back just break? And it did break a little bit against Texas, but Texas breaks everybody's back defensively on offense, but. There's just nothing else to say about OU. It's dreadful offensively. It's not going to get much better. And you have no excuses other than looking at the head coach right now because he made a culture change there and it's built on defense. The defense has gotten better, which has always been the ridicule on Lincoln Riley, but you do not expect Oklahoma to improve its defense at the expense of the offense becoming historically bad. It's bad there. A couple of weeks ago against Tennessee, there was a columnist sitting in the press box saying this is the worst quarter of football they had watched in OU history, and they're certainly trying to challenge that once again in this past Red River, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way. They're going to be a 500 team at the end of the year.
Quinn Ewers was efficient, but he certainly looked rusty.
Yeah.
And you just wonder if he shook off enough for us to face Georgia.
Yes. I think that I do think we're putting a little bit too much stock into, Georgia, they're shaky right now.
Oh, I know.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think they're going to be pretty charged up and prepared to play Texas this week. And Longhorns better watch out. Quinn Ewers, that's the key. Was he rusty, or was that something that's going to carry over into this game? That's my big question.
So that Georgia State game, it's a 10-point game at the end, right? If you pay attention to that game, it wasn't a 10-point game. I get it. I will say Van Buren did have 300 pass yards on that Georgia defense, and Georgia struggled to keep State, who is obviously the worst team in the conference, at arm's length at home. It just doesn't look like the dominant Georgia team. They're still good. Trust me, they're good. It just doesn't look like the dominant Georgia team we've seen under Kirby Smart over the past couple of years.
No. Holes there defensively at times. Carson Beck, Carson Beck put up huge numbers, career highs this past week. We do still wonder about him adjusting and trying to spread the ball around a little bit more and being able to trust some guys there. The key for because against Texas's defense, I'm not so sure Georgia is able to play from behind like they did against Alabama, because as we've seen with Alabama's defense, it kind of wilts away as the game goes along.
You mentioned Beck's numbers, 36 of 48, 459, 3 touchdowns going into that big game against Texas, where Texas is a 3.5-point favorite. You don't catch Georgia as an underdog very often, but they will be an underdog in Austin Saturday night. And what should be a charged environment there in Austin, their first really big SEC home game. I can't imagine what that atmosphere is going to be like with Georgia coming into Darrell K. Royal.
Oh, it'll be crazy, most definitely. And you know that they've had this game circled on their calendar all off season for a lot of reasons. This game, even I think going into this year, to the Texas fans and probably to the coaches as well, was bigger than OU. And they'll be ready. I think that it was gigantic. It was huge for them to get Quinn Ewers back against OU, because man, I'd have more doubt in my head going into this if Quinn Ewers was coming back for this game. But the key here is Quinn Ewers, as I said, shaking off the rust. Is that just a one-game thing? And even so, he still performed very well. And then also, I just think that if Texas can get up, early in this game, I'm just not confident in Georgia being able to fire back against that Texas defense. But having said that, I think this has the potential to be back and forth in this game. I think it's got that potential. Does Carson Beck have some confidence now going on the road to be able to spread the ball around a little bit more after the way they performed in the second half against Alabama and the way they performed this past week? I know everybody's looking at the score and the defensive performance, but I think that the key development here for Georgia is that they do seem to be finally getting some more confidence in Carson Beck these last 3 weeks.
So did Oregon do enough to jump to number 1 in Brandon's power rankings, or did Texas stay there? We will tell you that in just 1 second after I remind you that the show is presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. Code next round. Monday Night Football is there tonight. All the college games. They start Tuesday, by the way. Troy is at South Alabama Tuesday, and we got football all week. You can play it all right there at MyBookie.ag. When you sign on, you'll make your initial deposit. You use code NEXTROUND, and they double that deposit. That is free money you can play with right away. Win once with it. It is yours and yours forever. MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. Also, Roback.com brings you the show as well. TNR20. When you just log on right there at Roback.com, make your first purchase, use code TNR20, and you save 20% on all those great golf shirts, the quarter zips, the hoodies. Wonderful stuff right there at Roback. Gift-giving season is around the corner. Go ahead and get that Roback for that person in your life. Men's and women's clothing right there at Roback. TNR20 to save 20% off your initial order at Roback.com. All right, each week Brandon does his power ranking for CBS Sports, and he shares his top 12 with us right here on the Middle 8. Oregon with a big win over Ohio State. Was it enough to jump to number 1, Brandon Marcello? Did you move the Ducks to 1?
No.
You left Texas there. Hook 'em.
Clear number 1 to me. They've been dominant every single week, even despite having to rotate quarterbacks, even though they've got the 2 better quarterbacks in the country right now. But Oregon impressive, obviously, but I would have only considered moving Oregon up if they won by double digits against Ohio State.
I do respect the fact you leave, and for those who can't see, Texas 1, Oregon 2. You leave Ohio State 3. I was having this discussion actually last night. We went over to a friend's house, and he was like, what would you have done with Ohio State? And I said, well, if you think Oregon is number 2, Ohio State went to their place and lost by 1, I'd probably leave them number 3. And I know people don't like that because they got that little 1 on the other side of the dash. But, I mean, if I go to number 2 and lose by 1, I'm probably the 3rd best team in the country.
Yeah, and had a chance to win it there late, if not for the referees getting flag happy and your quarterback sliding. So, yeah, that wasn't really a big problem for me. And, very well, I still think, and you look around, I don't know what the books say, but Ohio State, to me, is probably still the favorite to win the Big Ten. They got to get past Penn State, but still very impressed by Ohio State. They look like a number 3 team.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. You got Miami number 4. The Canes are at Louisville coming up Saturday after that Cal game. It has They got the bye, and then they're at Louisville, number 4 for Miami. Interesting road trip at Louisville Saturday.
Yeah, very much so. Louisville also kind of coming off a bye there after losing to SMU. How do they respond in a big moment like this? Jeff Brom will have them ready. That'll be a very entertaining game. And, Miami, to me, that's why I wasn't able to jump them over Ohio State, because of the performance at Cal, where they were very lucky to win that game. But, it's better to be lucky than great sometimes. And Cam Ward is great.
He is.
And was able to lead them back in that game. But, again, we talk about this every week now. Going across the country and playing games this year, very, very difficult, especially as the season goes along.
Yeah, ask Cal. They're having to do it left and right. You wrap it up with Georgia 5, Penn State 6, Clemson 7, Alabama is 8, Texas A&M 9, Iowa State 10, Coach Sig in there at 11 with Indiana, and then Notre Dame, who smashed Stanford, is 12. So for Brandon, no Tennessee in your top 12. I find that interesting. I mean, 2 straight weeks they've struggled a little bit, enough for you to drop them out.
Look like a completely different team than they did in the first half of the season against a very easy schedule. NC State was their chronicle win there, big win there, and NC State's terrible. Yep. And we come to find out. And so Tennessee really hasn't beaten anybody. And yes, the scores are impressive, but as we saw with Ole Miss earlier this season, you score 60, 70 points or whatever, but where are your big wins? Tennessee doesn't have big wins, and not just that, they're looking lackluster offensively, even against mid-tier teams.
All right, another middle 8 has flown by. He is Brandon Marcello. Go follow him on social media at @BMarcello, CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. The show presented by MyBookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND when you sign on to double your initial deposit. Free money right there at MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. Thank you, Brandon. Have a good week.
See you, everyone. Enjoy the week.
All right, we'll see Brandon back next Monday at 8 o'clock. The next round is next right here where you're watching and listening to this show.